Hey guys, welcome back. Robocraft Early Access coverage. This is episode 36. I'm Enigmius, and today it's all about the gun mounts. That's basically the whole episode is gun mounts. It's not necessarily surprising when you've got a bot this size with 9 guns on it that there's going to be a certain amount of time invested into the mounts themselves. Now there's the basic design for the gun mount, that sort of one layer design that includes the block that the gun will be placed on. And then in a bot like this, where each row of guns starting from the front and working towards the back is higher than the row before it, there's going to be some work that has to be done in figuring out a way to get that mount to connect to the chassis in a way that's not just a single flimsy connection that would make it very, very easy to lose the whole mount, much less, the mount and the gun at the slightest bit of damage. So that's what we're going to be doing, is we're going to be focusing on the basic structure of the mount and then connecting it to the chassis. And one of the things that we're doing here is this little line of prisms that I'm doing is more representative of the outer perimeter where the guns will be mounted. So we had the first sort of outer edge of the chassis that we did the last episode, and I mentioned that I wanted to make sure that the guns weren't sitting on the very edge of that, because then they just become too appealing of a target and people start shooting them off, or they're just too easy of a target. Shots that may normally have just hit chassis or may have missed altogether are now hitting the gun mounts because we stuck them too far out to the side. So I intentionally made the first line for the outline of the chassis larger than was necessary to handle all the gun mounts. And in this case, we're doing it just the right size so that we can handle all of the gun mounts and have room for the overhang there to give it a little bit of extra protection. Now, one of the things about an episode like this, where we're basically doing a little bit of prep work and then getting down to the business of doing gun mounts, this could get very repetitive. So there's a balance that we have to strike here, and that's providing people who want all of the individual gory details the ability to see all of those details and the mounts getting put into place, all of them and all the different things that we do. And then there's also going to be an escape mechanism for the people who don't necessarily want that much detail. They just want the broad strokes and the general idea. An opportunity to kind of see what's going on and then later on just bugger off if that's what they want to do. They want to go do other things without making them feel like they're missing out on a big chunk of the video. So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to do a little bit of commentary, get things started, describe what we're doing, and then probably the latter 1/3 to 1/2 of the video is just going to be building with some music. And if you want to stick around and watch that, you can, and if you don't, then that's totally cool too. You can see now we've got the framework in place that we put in place last episode that shows us exactly where the guns are going to be, and it's up to us to just kind of put things in place. And you can also see that the frame, the chassis, is a little bit wonky. It's not symmetrical, and that was something that I picked on as I was getting ready to render the last episode. It was too late to do anything about it. It wasn't like I was going to go in and tear the bot apart and start over and re-record it just to show you that little detail. We'll fix it. It'll be fixed. Don't worry. We're aware of the discrepancy. Now, the consideration that I have for gun mounts it's to protect the guns, is basically what it is. Now, we know from the whole gunbrella protection mechanism or anti-protection mechanism that if you get hit by plasma or rails on a gun, there's automatically a certain percentage of that damage that's going to transfer through the gun to the block below it, which can theoretically very easily and quickly clear all the guns off your bot, even though you haven't taken enough damage to destroy the guns themselves. And that was because people realized that if you just kind of cover your bot with guns, it's like having this extra layer of armor that also shoots back at people. That's very, very difficult to kill because guns have a fair amount of armor that you have to chew through before they're destroyed. And of course, the whole time you're trying to chew through that, they're shooting back at you, because the same thing you're trying to chew through is the gun. So they came up with this whole thing of transferring damage through so that you can't have this bot that's basically all covered in guns, that's not only an offensive powerhouse, but also extremely difficult to kill. Unfortunately, it makes planning to protect those guns a little bit wonky. There's almost a why bother kind of thing that comes into play, because the chances of someone actually shooting under the gun to the gun mount and popping the gun that way, especially on a vehicle that sits kind of low, not huge. Most of the time it seems like when you're losing guns, it's because of the anti-gunbrella mechanism that they put into place. At the same time, when we're designing a bot like this, I kind of think that there's a lot of room to be had for the just-in-case scenarios. It's not always going to be the benefit that it was designed to be, but the times that it does work out is what makes it all worthwhile having done it. And that's the case with the whole Armor Core principle from top to bottom, is that it's not always guaranteed to be more effective than cubes, but it's never going to be less effective if it's designed properly. And the time that it's more effective, it can be way more effective. That's kind of the idea. The same thing with the gun mounts. There are going to be lots of times where the gun gets popped off because of the anti-gun umbrella thing. There's nothing you can do about it, but those times when someone actually does kind of get into that position where they're firing at the mounts, they're going to last a little bit longer than if we hadn't really put a lot of attention into building them. So that's what we're doing here, is putting that attention into building them. Something that I've developed as kind of a bad habit that I'm trying to be conscious of with my builds is not giving my bots adequate protection all the way around. Now, Pretty Hate Machine was an example of that. Right now, one of the most common things that I have happen is to have the rear thrusters destroyed, and it makes the bot very, very slow and very, very difficult to control, and the end result is that I usually die soon after. In that case, I had actually planned on building like a hood around the back of the whole vehicle that would have protected me against that kind of thing, but we hit the CPU limit, and that kind of ruined things for us. In this case, with the development of the gun mounts, I decided that I wanted to make sure that I wasn't leaving that as a point of vulnerability, as having these gun mounts to protect the gun from the front, but ignore basically everything that was going on in the back, because especially in Tier 10, you get flanked a lot more often than you might expect. You don't even realize it, you just realize, oh, here's a bastard shooting me in the ass again. You got flanked, and that's a perfectly good strategy. It's a great thing to do, and that's why people do it, and that's why they'll continue to do it. So if we know that that's the case, it makes sense that we try and build our bot to counter it in some ways. And in this case, it ends up being putting a little bit more protection in the back of the gun mounts, in addition to what we're doing to the front and the sides, so that we're not losing the guns quite so easily that way. So that's what we're going to end up doing. You won't actually see it, unfortunately, in this episode. The next episode is when we add that rear guard to the gun mounts. But for now, you can kind of see how things are taking shape. It's a pretty straightforward design. It's one that I've used repeatedly. There's not a whole lot of change, but one of the things that you'll notice is that it's going to end up looking a lot better. Not because I said that that's a goal that I had in mind, as I wanted it to look as good as possible, but I kind of put things together, and as it was coming together, I said, hey, that looks kind of cool, and we're going to work with that. I haven't had the CPU with this build to worry about putting too many tetras in place, but the final version of this build will have tetras on the gun mounts as sort of the coup de grace finishing touch that will give it a little bit of extra protection and also a little bit of extra aesthetic appeal. But for now, you can see pretty straightforward, using as many prisms as we can, angled appropriately so that no damage that hits any of the outside blocks can go directly to the block that the gun is sitting on. That's the basic premise of all of our gun mounts with this kind of armoring scheme, is that we're controlling the flow of damage, not because it's going to stop the guns from being knocked off, like I say, but because there are going to be situations where routing it around that block is going to buy us a little bit of extra time, a little bit of extra soak capability for the damage. Hopefully it'll give us a chance to either get out of the way or return fire and kill them before they can kill us. That's really the goal. That's all it ever is kill them before they can kill us, or buy us enough time to get away and maybe find a medic. Either or. Now, I can say that I've taken this bot basically to the final stages of what I can do with this CPU. The next episode after this one will be out as soon as I can do the commentary for it. It's huge, it's intimidating, and it's going to take forever to finish it off with the tier 10 armor blocks. So I'm thinking what I might actually do is do it all in the purple tier 9 blocks, just so that I can start getting it into some matches and taking advantage of those double bonus quest things for RP and tech points that I don't need for tier 10 anymore. I would prefer to do it all with the black and red blocks from the very beginning, but I don't think that's going to really be viable. It's going to take millions and millions of RP to get that done, and we still have the Pretty Hate Machine to finish with the all black blocks. It's mostly done, actually. It's just the core central area of the bot is still all the purple ones. So we've got our work cut out for ourselves in terms of just finishing the bots that we've got. But it'll keep us busy. There'll be lots of match footage to enjoy. Let's put it that way. So I think that's basically, you're seeing now, again, the actual pattern for the gun mount is pretty much the same, from the one in the front all the way to the ones in the back here. Next episode, we're actually going to finish it off, take it all the way to the back, and then we're going to mount all the remainder of the components, the hover blades, the rudders, the thrusters, the driver's seat. We'll probably get it into the practice map so that we can see how it's going to handle out in the real world and shoot some level 1 bots that really can't defend themselves against 9 tier 10 SMGs. So if you want to be notified when I add that and other videos, you can always subscribe to my channel. You can also follow me on the social media. Links for that are in the information section below the video. If you have any comments and questions or feedback or whatever, you can leave those as well. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.